that Madagascar has just stepped now with its fourth republic. So that's the main reason we are here, to hear from Indonesia and also from other countries about the reform, administrative reform especially, that we are on the way now to bring. I just want to say to let you know a bit about Madagascar, because many of you don't know where is Madagascar, and I will just say a few words about that. Madagascar is located in the Indian Ocean, and it is the biggest island in the Indian Ocean, between southeast of Africa and the Mauritius Island. Its population is 22 million, and the superficie is 592 square kilometers, 592,000 square kilometers. Madagascar has a very rich natural resources. I will tell you about gemstones in mining, and we have precious stones as ruby, emerald, sapphire, and also the semi-precious stones. And also we have a big land. Only 10% of this land is explored. So we have a big place for the agriculture. The other side also, we have the human resource. The young people are there also, and make a big human resource. The island has also a big, good places for tourism. In spite of that, Madagascar is still where we are now, because especially of its history. And we know that we have 4 republics up to now, but between those republics were always some revolution, rebellion, which lasted very long. And from last time now, it's 5 years of transitions that took us to very bad consequences in the social, political areas. So my friend Chris, who is from the Committee of Safeguard of Integrity, he will tell you more about the national policy of governance. And I just give him this one.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam. So you see that we see at gender equality, to speak. So Madagascar is not very known in the world. And when you listen to the radio or look at television or read papers, newspapers, often we hear Madagascar of bad news. Cyclone, revolution, of coup d'etat and violence like that. But when good news happens, nobody tells. As my colleague said, we had the elections last January. New president, new government, and we hope to have a new democracy. We mean new democracy, it's a great word, new way of work, methods of work. So 10 years ago, we had a strong anti-corruption strategy, like Quebec 10 years ago. So it's time now to evaluate, to assess what is the result, what is the impact in the reality. And we see that the result is very bad. If you see the CPI, sorry, in the paper is IPC in French, CPI, the PCI, sorry, the Perception of Corruption Index of Transparency International, it was 2.8 10 years ago, and is still 2.8 now, 10 years after a small increase. So the question is, 10 years of fighting against corruption with no results? Not really. Some results, but not perceived, not seen by people, not seen by businessmen, and so on. So we have to, it's time to reshape the system. We have three bodies: the Anti-Corruption Bureau, built in 2004, the Special Court of Corruption, and the Financial Intelligence Unit. Moreover, we can see some subjects, interesting subjects about good governance. I will take only two to explain the situation. The first one is the access to information, and the second is the conflict of interest. If we speak of access to information, we see in our constitution an article: everybody has the right to know, in the Malagasy constitution. But in fact, in reality, nobody cares of this article, as many other articles also. That means that institutions have traditions in Madagascar, tradition of secrecy. We have a strong tradition of secrecy because administrations want to keep the documents, public documents, on their own. So we have launched a special program on that, waiting for the law, a future law. We have launched a charter, a free charter. So some administrations have signed the charter and engaged themselves to promote the freedom and the right to know. They deliver public documents to the people. The second subject is conflict of interest. As you know, conflict of interest means private interest versus public interest. And many times, private interest dominates the public interest. So, how to fight against that? How to manage that problem? It's, in every country, it's the same problem, I think. So, we launched a program just last year on that subject. And we think that in every ministry, every public organization, it would be interesting to rise an organization to manage this problem, to explain for the first time, explain to the public officers, to the public opinion, what is conflict of interest, how and why public conflict of interest can destroy the economy, can destroy the administration, can destroy the law. That's in a few words our purpose and our challenge for this new democracy in Madagascar. We can speak also of justice or local governance. Many subjects, very interesting subjects, but I prefer to answer the question if there are questions about that subjects. That's all, my friends.
Thank you very much. Let's directly move to colleagues from Tunisia before we have Q&A session later on for the presentation, Tunisian experience.
Thank you very much. So let me firstly thank you, Mr. President, Chairman of this session, and let me also say that it's a great pleasure for me to be given this afternoon this possibility and this opportunity to give you some ideas about our experience in terms of good governance. Let me also be so grateful and extremely grateful towards His Excellency, our Ambassador. I'm so encouraged by his so as he is present today, and so as my colleague from Tunisian embassy also on behalf of my friend, colleague, and let's say leader, Mr. Ali Loueti, we are both here representing our state, Tunisian state. So we choose to introduce our system in terms of good governance, but by focusing on accountability. This terms is becoming not only a value but also a principle. Let's say it's the most important criteria that allow the measurement of so realizing public policy and making effective program that initiated by government or other actor. Let's say also that almost every country now has its democratic system, which is divided and separated between powers, different powers. Let's say generally there's 3 powers, as you know, executive, legislative and judiciary. But still we have always this gap between, on one hand, strategic level and operational one, between programming and execution, between public policy conception and execution, between objective and goals and results. This is the main problem. That's why we choose today to speak about accountability, about concrete things, about concrete and effective things. That's the way that we proceed in Tunisia, especially after a revolution. As you know, on 14 of this on January 2011, we moved to another dimension, to another system which is based on democratic, on participation, on freedom of expression. And let's say that, please move, excuse me. Let's say that we have established a real dialogue between every actor in our countries, so as to make different actors express themselves about democracy, about transparency, about accountability, about integrity. And let's say that non-governmental actor has a real and essential role in our transition, our democratic transition, and which is effective towards and within this dialogue. It's firstly initiated by the quartet. We say the quartet, four actors. They represented simultaneously non-governmental actor. Firstly, we have UTICA, which is Tunisian Union for Industry and Commerce. Then we have UGTT, which is also a Tunisian Union for Employment. Then the National Bank in Tunisia, then also the National League for. In this dialogue, all political parties has actively participated. But which is very important within this dialogue, it's initiated by a non-governmental actor, but it's approved by governmental actor. Three bodies have approved this dialogue. Government, our National Constitutional Assembly, then the Presidency of the Republic. So as it makes it a real and effective dialogue, with real results, which are measurable and touchable by everybody in Tunisia. The purpose of this dialogue was to establish 3 processes. Firstly, a governmental process. Secondly, a constitutional one. And thirdly, it was an electoral one. That's why it's very effective. And for the governmental one, we know that almost 3 months or 5 months ago, we established a new government, which is apolitical government, with no belonging to any any political issues or political views. This is for the first process. The second process, which is dealing with electoral law, we have already chosen an electoral body which is in charge of preparing, organizing our electoral process. Then for the Constitution 1, you know that on this January, exactly on 26, we have this document. It's not a sample document. It represents for us a great sample of liberty, of transparency, of participation, of accountability. Not sample terms, not sample concept, but it's a real link between theoretical dimension and practical dimension. But we have still challenges, as you know. And by this dialogue or political dialogue, there is a great effect, a great impact on the other sector. Let's say that there is a great link between political, economic, and social sector. That's why we are leading now an economic dialogue, which is involving different actors, governmental one and non-governmental one. Then social sector, especially it's a sector which have a real participation of civil society, of non-governmental actor, and it's authorized by a social contract. A social contract which is signed on 14th of January 2013, and we are now moving to a next step, which is realizing all the article of this social contract. Then two days ago, we signed between the government, then the non-governmental actor, 3 conventions. One dealing with the purchase power for citizens. Then the other one is dealing with social negotiation salary. Then the third one is about productivity and product. And so as there's a real link between the three dimension and 3 sector. And among all these, there's always civil society real participation in different process. And we have, as I said, real and effective results in terms of new constitution, a real body, and an independent body that will lead all the electoral process. And you know that our constitution has declared that we should, before the end of this year, organizing our election, and that's why it was very effective. So just some ideas in our new constitution about let's say about something about bureaucracy. You know, bureaucracy is a French term root, or French. It's from a French origin, and it means desk. It mean generally a top-down process, top-down approach. But now we are moving to another approach, which is based on a bottom-up, on a participation, not only dealing with this approach, which is forward from political side to people to different other actors, which has a negative participation. That's why in our constitution we have based our strategy, our consensus, our compromise on different method, so as to make administration totally and entirely serving only citizen and business. This is the main goal of our administration. Let's move from an administration of means to an administration of results which are and which are by business. Just new things, new mechanisms that were established by our constitution. Let's say, for instance, political opposition. It's institutionalized by this new constitution with real participation in the legislative council. Even we have established a new system of this political opposition participation. It's compulsory that this opposition body will preside financial commission, and you know all of you what means what financial commission means in terms of assessment, in terms of checks and balances towards policy and program that initiated by government or other actor. A new thing also which is established by our constitution, the chapter number 6, which is dealing with 5 new independent bodies. It's very important for us to make effective accountability that we should be led by an independent bodies. So first one, electoral body, which is already established, audiovisual authority, human rights authority, sustainable and future generation rights authority, good governance and anti-corruption authority. You know that we have already an agency dealing with anti-corruption fighting, but we add good governance as a new dimension, as a new dimension, but also a special approach to make prevention in terms of anti-corruption fighting has its essential place in anti-corruption strategy and anti-corruption view. Then we can talk about decentralization, but it's a principle. However, you know, it's some principles, some general ideas, some fundamentals that should be established effectively on the ground, on the reality. As I said, we have already created some authority. We are establishing a new dialogue in terms of economic issues and social issues. So the machine is going on. That's very important for us. So, as I said, towards these different principles, we have many challenges in terms of this constitutional principle and constitutional fundamental. We can just talk about regaining and refreshing confidence between citizens, business and administration, between government and people. We lose trust. A few years ago or a long way ago, we lose trust, we lose confidence. That's why we should reestablish this confidence, this trust between different actors, and try to reduce this gap between government, between strategy, between political, between citizens. That's why it's very important to talk about checks and balances, to talk also about accountability and effective accountability and an effective self-assessment. Of course, we talked about administration. We are, as I said, moving from an administration of means to an administration of missions, which should be reduced in terms of program, of results, of objective, which should also be an objective measurable, touchable, time scheduled, so as to make and to allow different actors follow and monitoring all the process, all the steps of realizing this process, and to allow also the assessment, both the internal and self-assessment and external one, which is very important to make this balance between the body who conduct and lead policy and an external view, an external body who is also participating in monitoring, in controlling, but essentially in evaluating and assessing so this program and these projects. Though we know also all of you that in our strategies in the past we have not visibility, we have not this transparency of our choice, our priorities. That's why we should have this dimension, this approach in terms of process. Anyway, political one, social one, and economic one should have this visibility, should have this transparency in terms of participation, in terms of a calendar. We should make a calendar, we should make a follow-up method, we should establish a mechanism of assessment. This is very important for us. It's, as I said, a holistic system, holistic approach that engage everybody, both the governmental one, non-governmental one, civil society participation. This is our challenge, our real challenge. We talked about effectiveness, and this just some ideas about effective and realistic engagement from everybody, as I said, governmental and non-governmental bodies. Let's say, for instance, for open government, which is very important in terms of accountability, in terms of transparency. We have established after our revolution a regulation that deals entirely with allowing this open government. Open government in terms of information, even in terms of political or governmental project. Everyone, every citizen, every Tunisian citizen, every non-governmental body has the right to ask any administration or any governmental body to have any information. You know, as in every approach, in every country, there is a conventional information that deals with army or another security, or which is normally between parts, but can be confident about towards this information. We have established in our presidency of government also let's say a sense of good governance. It's a new idea in all over the Arab countries. We have known this unity, this sense of good governance, and we choose that we establish these bodies among the three levels: governmental one within different and all ministries, then regional one in every governorate, and then in every public enterprise. So everybody's from these three levels are asked and obligatory that he creates or it creates this sense of good governance in terms of power of proposals, in terms of proposals that deals with transparency, with policy, with public policy, with participation, how it can propose some initiative to make an effective goals in terms of policy, program, project. This is very important. Many things about anti-corruption, for instance, we have so choose to make the link between civil society participation and governmental one. How? We have established a team, a governmental team to review the mechanism, to review our regulation in terms of anti-corruption. You know that UNCAC, the United Nations Anti-Corruption Convention, has established a mechanism of self-assessment. And we lead this self-assessment. We make our reports both between us as a governmental body, but we have participated with civil society bodies to establish these reports.
So very interesting presentation. You may conclude, the committee keep reminding me. Your interesting presentation.
Just to say the main ideas that we make, we are trying to make this link, this effective link between strategic level, operational level, between public policy and operational management, in terms of administration, in terms of performance, economic one, administrative one, political one, social one, so as to make citizen, firstly, observe, secondly, monitor, thirdly, participate, and real participation from everybody in not only elaborating or in terms of conception of program, but also in terms of implementing, in terms of following up different projects. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for a very comprehensive presentation about what is taking place now in terms of transforming governance in Tunisia, especially after the revolution, as you said. I should congratulate you and also colleagues from Madagascar, not only for the interesting presentation, but for the very important transition. Now, Madagascar is in a good fashion to move forward, as the government is already in place after a very successful election. And it so happened that I remember a few weeks ago, the president sent out a congratulatory letter to the president for the successful election and the successful forming of the government. And Tunisia also, I think, as a pioneer of transformation in the region, deserve very relevant for Indonesia and Tunisia to continue the dialogue and sharing and learning from each other, mutually strengthening, enriching experience, and to all, of course, participating countries. I know the time is very limited, but I have special, as Director of Africa, I have special feeling to be with this union in this forum. Madagascar has special relationship with Indonesia. Please correct or confirm. They consider the main tribes came from this land, 4th century BC. And even the language, Malagasy language, it's very much close to one of our language in Kalimantan, Dayak Manya. And why we established our embassy in Madagascar since 1970s until today. Great island nation, Madagascar. Tunisia also, we established our embassy in 1960. Even before the independence, we had already relations to support independence. And Sudan, we will be going to Bandung, hopefully, and the program to Bandung, is there? No, unfortunately. When 1955, we have Asia-Africa Conference, Sudan participated as non-independent delegation because the independence is not there yet. But my president, our first president, mentioned to the delegation of Sudan, you should not join any delegation here. If I'm not mistaken, it's Egypt. Part of the Egypt delegation. You deserve one flag. And our president gave the white flag. And they wrote Sudan. And a few years from that, Sudan got the independence. Liberia, important country, and participated in Bandung. You may not be aware of it. Liberia, your foreign minister was present in Bandung in 1955. Palestine, of course, very important. All Indonesians know Palestine and the struggle of Palestine. In this room, we organized last month in Asia-Africa strategic partnership to help Palestine in terms of capacity building in this room, chaired by my minister, attended by the President and Prime Minister of Palestine, and the South African Foreign Minister as well, because this is East Africa strategic partnership. I'm sorry to misuse my capacity. It's a great feeling to be here. If there is one particular comment to the two presentations, I'll give you three. Yeah, three, so please. Oh, Indonesia also. 4. Libya, and then Sudan, and then Liberia, and then Indonesia. Let's give the floor in that sequence along my way. I would appreciate if everybody can deliver the remarks, the comments, very brief. Yeah. Because you need to see Jakarta at night time. Jakarta is also beautiful, despite the traffic.
We thank Oscar as we start the relation. As Libya, Tunisia, by the way, it's one family, one tribes. In the last crisis, all Libyans, we stay months, especially my father, my mother, brothers, sisters, they stay in Tunisia. And most Libyans in the crisis, they open their doors. We will not forget that, by the way. There is relations between our ministry, local government in Libya, and the Tunisian side. Is, you can say, weekly or monthly. Last three days before we came here, Father Hassan, Mr. Hassan, he went for a workshop in the boundary. Not 1 month ago, our minister and also Hassan's member of that group, they went to Tunisia. We have troubles because the spring. That's 3 years. Still, there is a security crisis. We try, from our view, from our ministry, we make arrangement between the municipalities, the towns, and the boundary, our side and their side. We try to make some projects. There is banking in Tunisia. Give money for the people who are employed to get chance. We think we share that because if the employed people work at both sides, that means it's one way to solve the security problems. Just a small explanation what I said this morning in Sudan. I spoke about 40 years, from the last 40 years. In 1958, when Sudani people they changed the Aboud, that's what it was. What's happened in Tunisia and Egypt and Libya and other countries, that's 3 years. It takes, I think, at least 10 or 15 years to start to go back to normal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Libya, for comment. Before I give the floor to the two speakers asking for the floor,